Again, let's assume that we're in an uptrend. We have a high time frame draw on liquidity right here. This area over here will be Nasdaq. This will be the S&P 500. So this is big N. This is big S. Okay, Nasdaq and the S&P 500. On Nasdaq, let's say we come up, we're in an uptrend, we sweep out this high, and then we come down, and then we make, boom, a lower high. Okay, we hit a high confluence area where orders can be filled for us to change the current trend in the direction, okay? And we end up making bearish structure, okay? We end up making a lower high. Now on the S&P 500, because these assets are correlated, it's going to be in the same uptrend and it's going to be following somewhat of the same pattern, right? So the S&P 500 is going to come up, come down, boom, we make a high. But instead of making a lower high, the S&P 500 comes up and makes a higher high. Now, when this happens, what does that give us? That gives us an SMT divergence, because Nasdaq, we made a high, then a lower high, but on the S&P 500, we made a high and then a higher high. So what is the Nasdaq telling us about the S&P 500? The Nasdaq is saying, hey, we just hit an area where we can fill orders and we are changing the current trend that we are in to the downside. So we're saying orders have been filled. And the S&P 500 just hasn't reacted to those orders yet, because again, these indexes, yes, they are correlated, but they are not the same. So when we see Nasdaq making a lower high, but the S&P 500 making a higher high, what does that tell us about the S&P 500 and what can that help us do? We can say, okay, even though the S&P 500 is continuing this uptrend and making a higher high, because Nasdaq made a lower high and because Nasdaq is starting this down move off of a key area where orders could be filled, we know that the S&P 500 is going to follow, okay?